I'm Julianne Zimmerman, Managing Director with Reinventure Capital, based in Boston, Massachusetts. We have a fund based here in the States, investing here in the States, in companies led by people of color and/or women. We invest across sectors in companies that can grow profitably to become economic engines. Our impact objective is to begin to break the persistent asymmetry in access to capital for overlooked founders, to grow companies that create value for their stakeholders and for their investors. One of the common misconceptions, I think, among entrepreneurs is that venture capital is the primary or even the only form of capital to grow their business. I think in general, the community at large, the investment community, the advisory community, the media, have done a disservice to entrepreneurs to propagate this misconception. While venture capital has an important role to play, particularly in companies that have a very steep growth trajectory, it's by no means the only option, and in many cases is not even the most appropriate option. I encourage entrepreneurs always to think about what is the total amount of capital that your company will require in order to reach self-sufficiency. And by self-sufficiency, I mean that the company generates sufficient revenues in excess of its operating costs, that it doesn't require outside infusions of capital in order to maintain its operation. With that in mind, then what are the stages of capital or the timing of capital required to reach that state? So how much capital will it take you to reach significant milestones in order to advance the company to that ultimate goal? Each of those stages has very different characteristics, and different forms of capital may come into play. You might have access to angel or friends and family money at the very beginning. You might be able to grow largely based on revenues. You might be able to access a line of credit or customer financing, basically to have your customers pay in advance for you to deliver a product or service. You might be able to write agreements with your customers to do what's called non-recurring engineering, NRE, or to be paid for developing a certain set of functionality, let's say, that serves their particular purposes. In any case, you should investigate all of the available forms of capital that are appropriate to your company. And the best way to do that is to look at other companies that are comparable to yours, that are a bit further down the path than you are, and to see what has worked for them and what hasn't. If you do decide to pursue outside equity investors, then it behooves you to also ask other founders what their experience has been like. Do your homework on investors. You should understand that an investor relationship is binding, and people will often talk about it as though it's like a marriage. There's an important difference, however, between an investor relationship and a marriage. In the unhappy scenario that your marriage does not work out, nobody wants this to happen, of course, but you can divorce. It's an option that exists. If you have an unhappy relationship with your investor, you don't have that option. And moreover, your investor does, in most cases, have the power and the right to remove you from your company. So you need to understand that you are entering into a very powerful and binding relationship. For that reason, if for no other reason, it's incredibly important for you as a founder to talk to other founders, to find out what their experience has been like working with specific investors. What was the conversation or what was the dynamic of their interaction prior to investment? What was the due diligence process like? What was the negotiation like? And most importantly, what has it been like to work with that investor after they made the investment? What you're doing is your due diligence on potential investors. And keep in mind that while that money that you're seeking is very valuable to your business also is potentially very valuable to those investors. So you have a two-way evaluation happening. The investor is doing his or her homework, his or her due diligence on your company and on you, and you are doing your homework, your due diligence on him or her and his or her firm. Don't imagine that just once you get the money, everything's going to be fine. As I say to entrepreneurs all the time, a dollar is not a dollar. A euro is not a euro. The money that you take in has a personality attached to it. It has expectations attached to it. It has very, very serious conditions attached to it. And all of those represent a cost. So as you are thinking about the growth of your company, you want to choose the kinds and the timing of capital that have costs you are best able to bear and that are best aligned with your objectives for the future success of your company. One of the most common misconceptions among founders, among entrepreneurs, is that venture capital is the best and only form of capital available to grow your business. I encourage you to think about all of the forms of capital your business might require and whether those are more aligned in general or in specific timing with your objectives. If you do pursue venture capital, I urge you to make sure you do your homework on any prospective investor. Make sure you understand not just the amount of money and the terms in the term sheet, but the person you are going to be involved with. Do your homework, ask other founders, find out everything you can, and good luck.